Ahead, the podcast about ships and shipping, with Alistair Eagles and Nigel Thompson.
I've had this in mind probably for a long time as I've been podcasting. Something about maritime has always kind of got my interest, really. I don't know much about ships, as will become very clear, I'm sure, but I'm curious.
And I'm someone who has been in shipping for a while, who doesn't know much about broadcasting. So maybe Nigel and, to me, Alistair, maybe together we can pull something together here in the wonderful Full Ahead shed.
It is literally a shed, and it's overlooking Morecambe Bay. Let's try and make it sound a bit more glamorous than it actually is, maybe. But yeah, that's where we are, and we're hoping to try and, well, from my point of view, learn a bit about shipping. Don't know much about it, very curious about it. My father was an apprentice at Heysham Port for many years ago. For every holiday or every time I went touring somewhere, we used to probably gravitate towards Plymouth or Hull or Middlesbrough. Oh yeah, went some great holidays, I can tell you.
Yeah, and my life kind of fell into shipping really through various strange goings on. Maybe we can cover that in a later episode. But I ended up in the ferry industry for many years, running ferries back and forth across the Irish Sea. And so yeah, I've got a knowledge of shipping, but shipping's a lot more than just ferries. There's so many different facets, so many different areas of shipping, and bits I know nothing about as well. So it's going to be good to learn about shipping, good to learn about the marine industry, but equally, I think most interesting to meet some of the people involved with it, because it's kind of hard to get past that kind of key wall. It's hard to meet some of these people and talk about anything from what it's like to work in shipping, some of the innovation going on. There's just lots to talk about, and I don't think shipping is talked about very much, but 80% of the stuff in your house, in this shed, has probably been on a ship at some point in its life. It's vital to all of our lives all around the world.
And I think you're right, the people, for me as a journalist, it's always people first. Their stories are fascinating, and how often you come across somebody with an amazing story to tell who just gets on with it because it's, to them, it's normal. It's a day job, whether they're a pilot or they're somebody who looks after the stevedores, or they're a member of the ship's crew, or they're shore staff, the vital members of staff who make sure that ships get to sea safely and on time.
The industry is absolutely full of characters, maybe nutters sometimes, but mainly characters, and there are some amazing stories, and let's hope over the next few months we meet some of these people, we explore some of these interesting stories, and the Full Ahead podcast is a window into this maritime world.
So here we go, episode 1. I'm Nigel Thompson. I've been a journalist for many years, more years than I care to remember.
And I'm Alistair Eagles, and I absolutely haven't been a journalist, but I've been in the shipping industry for a similar amount of time.
And together we're going to try and shine a spotlight on some of the people, some of the stories, and some of the facts that you might not know about the world of shipping and maritime.
And coming up in future editions, we're going to be talking to one of the very smallest ports in the country and learning about how they survive, how they carve out their particular niche.
And we'll also hear how green energy and sustainable credentials matter in the world of shipping, because they do.
And the environmental angle is getting ever important in all of our lives. So how does shipping become environmentally friendly? How does it move ahead with new technologies, new ideas? And let's speak to some of the people there and find out what they're doing.
Yeah, because innovation, obviously nothing stands still forever, and certainly in the world of shipping it seems that innovation is very much a buzzword. Reading even today about sort of different forms of propulsion, different fuels that might be needed in the future. It's something that doesn't stand still.
Absolutely. I'm also really keen to hear from some of the people, some of the characters. We don't hear from people in shipping, in maritime very often. Often when things go wrong, we hear about what someone did wrong, but we don't hear about the day-to-day stories of how ships move back and forward, what happens in ports, and what goes on across the entire maritime industry. And it's going to be great to hear from some of those people. Yeah,
I'm keen to hear from those, as you say, who don't often get the kind of credit they deserve for making things happen. The tug drivers, the shore staff, the pilots.
Pilots, indeed. I think in one of the upcoming episodes, I think the next episode, we're going to be speaking to a pilot, someone who brings ships in from the sea into the harbours. Not a role that people really hear about too often, but it's going to be really interesting to speak to someone about how they do that, what happens, and the skills and challenges involved.
And we meet them 7 miles out into the bay, and I'll climb up the side up a rope ladder up the side of the ship. So sometimes the weather's not suitable for that. And then once I'm on board, we're looking at the wind and the tide and using it to your advantage, or taking that into account, basically.
Yeah, that's Andy Bradbury, and we'll hear more from him in the next episode. I guess a man who perhaps rarely says full ahead.
I think today, the environmental challenge, I think Probably nobody says full ahead, which maybe makes this a really bad title for the podcast, but we'll stick with it because we're positive and we are full ahead. But full ahead is probably a phrase that's less and less used in the maritime industry these days. This episode's guest is Harvey Finney. He's an amazing young man. Kids these days wondering what to do, university, college, apprenticeships, there's all sorts of options. But here's someone who always wanted to go to sea and from a very early age kind of started pushing the doors to make that happen. Some people have no idea what they want to do in life. Some people absolutely know. Harvey knew, he pushed a load of doors, and this is the story of how he made it happen.
Do you think maritime industry is a big draw in this day and age for young people like Harvey, Alistair?
I think less and less so. I think it's really hard, impenetrable almost to get into, and I think it's hard to find out about it. It's why it's great to hear people like Harvey talking openly about it and explaining to us all how you can carve out a successful career in the maritime industry. So we're stood today down at Half Moon Bay in Heysham, looking out over Morecambe Bay, and stood here with Harvey. So Harvey is someone I've known since he was about 14, when he wrote me an email in my role as running a local shipping company, wanting to come and see a ship. So welcome, Harvey. It's lovely to see you again.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Good to see you.
And going back to that email, I think it was an email, maybe it was a letter back then, but just thinking back, what came about? Why did you write an email to me wanting to come and visit a ship? What sparked your interest in maritime?
Well, you're quite correct, actually. It was an email, and I've always had a passion for ships and shipping since I was a kid. And I think it was because as a kid, we used to go away on holiday a couple of weeks a year, and we used to go out to Mallorca. And as a young kid, you see ships out and about, all the time. And I loved it, and you're just fascinated by it. And it sort of sparked an interest within me. And I managed to go on one of the ferries there. It was fantastic. I managed to get a bridge visit as well, had a look on the bridge, and this really ignited my passion. And I just thought, this is something that I want to do, for the rest of my life almost, for my career, definitely. And living local to Heysham, I'm just down in Preston, I knew of Heysham Port, and I'd always seen the sea truck ships, which also sparked an interest for me, and I'd always had a fascination with them. And so I happened to drop an email to Alistair one day, basically saying, hi, my name's Harvey, I'm really interested in ships, would it be possible to come and have a look on board one of your ships? And sure enough, he made it happen for me, and I had a good look around the Sea Truck Panorama quite a number of years ago now.
Yeah, it made me laugh because you came down and had a look around and got the kind of thank you email soon after, but it wasn't just a thank you email, it was thank you, but it'd be really nice to take a trip on the ship rather than just sitting in port and wandering around it. Could we do a crossing to Northern Ireland and back? So within a couple of weeks, you and your dad were back and you were doing a round trip on the ship on a weekend. Another nice thank you letter and whatever. But then before I knew anything about it, I think it was half term, and you had befriended one of the captains who kind of took you under his wing, and without my kind of express knowledge, you were doing back and forths across the Irish Sea during your half term from school at the age of maybe 15, I can't remember.
Yeah, 14, 15, it certainly was, on my half term. I would love it, jumping on the Sea Truck Panorama normally, going across to Warren Point, and it was fantastic. It just piqued my interest. It was absolutely fantastic to see the ship running, how the bridge worked, how everything worked on the ship, because I'd never had that opportunity anywhere else otherwise, and that really made my key decision that I wanted to go and work at sea. From then on, I found out that there was a local nautical college, which was at Fleetwood, which is just up the road from me, and so they hold an open day a couple of times a year. I went along to one of those, had a good look round. They have a fantastic simulator there, and they also have a number of shipping companies who would sponsor your training. And so I introduced myself, I sort of talked about what I'd done so far, and obviously I piqued their interest as well. And so they said, when the time comes, please apply to us, and we'll go from there. I started at 16, I was the youngest in the class, as a class of about 32, 33. Of varying ages. I think the oldest guy was in his 30s, and there was me, little 16-year-old me, fresh out of school. And that was 10 years ago now. In fact, 10 years ago I left school and started doing it, and that time has absolutely flown by since.
And how does nautical college work? What actually happens, and how do you pay for it?
Well, this is the beauty actually of it. And so the way I always liken it to people, it's like if you imagine a pilot of a plane, when they start their training, they have to fork out a huge amount of money, normally £100,000, £150,000, and it's not a cheap thing at all. No, not many people have that sitting around. So the beauty of being a merchant navy cadet and working in shipping is that shipping companies will sponsor your training. So what that means is they will pay for all your training, all your uniforms, all accommodation, and on top of that, you will get not only a qualification, but a small wage as well, which as a 16-year-old lad, that £700-800 a month was fantastic. I had no outgoings. I thought, this is fantastic. I could do my studies in the week. I didn't need to work over weekends, do anything like that. I could just purely focus on my studies. And the best part was, at the end of it, I walked out of there with not only the qualifications and a job, but also I was totally debt-free.
So compared to having 50 grand of debt after university and 3 years earlier as well. It's a 4-year course, I believe.
It is. It's roughly about 4 years, depending which route you take. But that's comprised normally of sort of 5 phases, 3 of which are on land based at college, where you do the theoretical part of it and the classroom side. And then you've got another 2 phases which are varying lengths, are sea phases. So the company who sponsor you, you'll either go and work on their ships or some ships that they are in contact with. So if it's like an agency or sponsoring company who has a pool of ships, you might be able to go on a cruise ship for a trip, and then you might go to a dredger or a cargo ship, something completely different. And so there's plenty of different ship types out there. There's something for everyone. I know a lot of people tend to favour the cruise ships because obviously the lifestyle that's viewed there, and I can't blame them for that at all.
So what did you do? What ship did you board?
So I went for the total polar opposite, to be honest. I went for specialised cargo ships, and we used to carry nuclear materials, fresh nuclear fuel, nuclear waste, recycled waste, anything nuclear. And it's quite funny actually, because as we studied this morning in Heysham, you look out to the bay and it's a gorgeous view, and you can just see Barrow in Furness across the bay, which is where my first job was for this company. And we used to sail from there to various places around the world, Japan, the USA, all around Europe. I've done the Panama Canal quite a few times with them as well. My first ship was a ship called the Pacific Grebe, and I joined that in Kobe in Japan at the age of 17. And I flew out there on my own to Japan and joined this ship, brand new crew, brand new environment, never done anything like it before, and I absolutely loved it. And the beauty was the ship was sat alongside for just about a month first, so I could actually get used to the ship, used to the life on board, used to the crew, how things worked. And then we actually went to sea and we sailed back from Japan via Panama to France and then over to Barrow here in the UK. And so at 17 I was there actually steering a ship, which was actually before I could even drive a car. So it's quite a feat, not going to lie there.
So you finished college at the age of 18, 19 or?
Yeah, about 19 there, yeah.
Okay,
and so I stayed on to do a bit extra. So I did some further exams that allowed me to shorten the course down later on when I went back to do my Chief Officer's exams. So that shortened it down to roughly about 4 months. So I stayed on, did those, and at about 19 years old, I started working as a third officer for the company in Barrow and Furness.
So when people go to university, they do their course, they accrue their student debt, and then trying to find a job at the end can sometimes be quite a challenge. If you go to nautical college and you're looking for a job in the maritime world, is it easy to find a job or is it difficult?
I think there's always a challenge, especially as soon as you've just qualified. There's always going to be a challenge to get that first, what we call stamp in the book, that first job on a ship. But now I think globally there's a shortage of crew generally. So I think it's more in our favour now in that there are more and more positions available, and people are looking quite actively. Some of it is just right place, right time. Some of it is based on the experience you've had whilst training. There's a lot of factors at play. I was very lucky in that the company who I worked for as a cadet, as a trainee, they then took me on as a third officer, and so I stayed in that company, and so I was very blessed and I could just walk straight into that without having to go looking around. Whereas some of my friends, they had to search for the jobs, but actually some of them came out quite very well. So a friend of mine, he was on a super yacht. He went as third officer on a super yacht. Some went onto tankers, some went to cruise ships. So there's quite a wide variety of shipping types globally that we all went on. I always knew that I wanted to move on to ferries eventually. So the first job I had, I loved it, I really did, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to progress much further because of the nature and how infrequent those voyages were. And I'd always fancied ferries, and the first thing I thought was, let's go for a complete change. And I was offered a wonderful opportunity in Dover to work for DFDS on their Dover to Dunkirk service. So I went down there. I went straight from a deep sea company where we wouldn't see land or ships for months on end, and if you did, it was quite a strange occurrence, to working on a ship where if you couldn't see land or couldn't see a ship, then something was definitely wrong.
Because Dover Calais or Dover Dunkirk is a very busy route. It's
It
like
is.
crossing a motorway.
Absolutely.
You're going across a short distance, but the traffic is all going across you, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
picking that gap through the traffic must be a challenge down there.
It definitely is a challenge. As you say, you're quite right in that it is like a motorway. So it's set up because years and years ago, ships would basically go anywhere and everywhere. There was collisions, and they basically the authorities turned around and said we need a uniformed way and a uniform flow of traffic. And so they made what they called the traffic separation scheme, and that basically means that on the French side, the traffic goes in a northeast direction towards Europe, and on the British side in a southwest direction away towards the Atlantic, and it keeps the traffic separate. And as a result, you've got these nice lanes, but as a result, it then means that we have to cross these lanes. So when you're in Dover about to depart, or in Calais, Dunkirk, wherever about to depart, straight away you're looking at the radar and the bridge equipment, and you're looking at the traffic. You're looking at what might cause you an issue, and you're looking and thinking, where can you possibly be, and put yourself in the best position so that you can pick that gap, get through as quickly as possible, and keep the ship on time, because it's a route where not just minutes but seconds matter. You know, if you lose a few seconds here, a few seconds there, then all of a sudden you're put 10 minutes behind because another ship's managed to jump the queue in front of you, and so it's these little things that really do matter.
What's your current role then? So you're on a Dover Calais ferry at the moment, but what's your responsibility? What do you do on that ship, and how long do you work, and how much time do you get at home?
So my current job role is chief officer on that ship, so that's second in charge if you look at it on the ladder. So above me you've got the captain, and then you've got the chief officer, and then below that is second officer and third officer. And my job role is more of a managerial role now. So I'm in charge of the running of the deck department, so that's including the deck officers, but also the deck ratings, so the guys who are working on deck, who are mooring the ship, loading the ship with cargo, lashing it, and also maintaining the ship, you know, from getting a can of paint out and painting a few bits here and there to resplicing ropes. So my role is very managerial, but that also means I'm not just sat behind a desk all day. I'm also actively driving the ship, so I'm a watchkeeper, so that means I'll stand on the bridge, I will navigate the ship when she's in what I'd say open waters, but if you can call it that on Dover Calais. I'll also manoeuvre the vessel as well. So generally we take it in turns between the master and myself, so that we will do alternate departures and arrivals, which is great fun because, you know, who doesn't like driving big ships? In addition to that, I'm also in charge of loading the cargo. So we're quite a large passenger ferry. We're about 190 metres long, roughly 36,000 tonnes. So we can carry approximately 1,700 passengers. We can take around 100, 110 freight units, and additionally around 250 to 300 cars. So in the height of summer, you are running around 5 round trips per day. You're having to load these 250 cars, these 100 Arctics, and then take them across, discharge them all, and load the same again to take them back. And you're doing that all day long. You're working generally 12 hours on, 12 hours off, which is not a bad thing because the day passes very quickly.
And the 12 hours you're living on the ship.
Yes.
You're not going ashore.
No.
You're staying on board the ship for a period of time.
Absolutely. I'm staying on board that ship, and I am basically tied to that ship. So I unfortunately don't get to go off and have a wander around anywhere. The first I get to wander normally is go and see the shoreside loading team, say hello, shake a few hands, and ask what cargo's coming back. But nevertheless, I still enjoy the job. I love the job. And even on the Dover-Calais route, you could liken it to driving a bus. It's the same back and forth every day, but no 2 days are the same. They're never ever the same. Whether that be through the traffic that you're trying to dodge in the channel, whether it's through a cargo issue, whether it's been damaged, or there's something that needs to be loaded that's abnormal, a passenger issue. There's always some weird and wacky challenges. So no 2 days are the same. And working those 12 hours as well means that by the end of the day, you are knackered and you're ready for bed. And the time passes by very quickly as well because it is so unique.
And how long are you on board before you go home?
So I work 2 weeks on board the ship, and then I get 2 weeks off at home as well. So it's a nice bonus. So in theory, I only work half the year. But for the half of the year where I am working, I'm stuck on board that vessel. I can't get off. You can't go home every night. You can't go and see your mates. You can't go down the pub. And unfortunately, it often means that you miss some of whether it's the family events or different things that you'd like to be able to do, but you can't. However, you can make up for that. There is some flexibility. You can adjust your roster to suit, or you have those 2 weeks off after the 2 week trip.
So half a year off every year. To some people would sound quite attractive, but the time on the ship is pretty intense by the sounds of it.
It is true. It's very intense, and it's not for everyone. I mean, if you love the job and you enjoy the job, it's fantastic. You know, you never will work a day in your life. It's a fantastic career. But if you don't like sea, if you don't like the ships, if you don't like being stuck away all the time, and I'm not saying that you're always going to be stuck away, it's just that you are on board that ship, then, you know, some people would say, no, this is the worst job ever. Get me away now.
Do you get seasick?
No, fortunately not. And it's funny though, because every ship is different, and every ship has its own unique character and motions, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. So some ships are quite boxy and they'll roll quite a lot. So the first ships that I worked on, they were very small, and as a result they were flat bottomed, and we used to go and normally be about 200 miles off land, and the reason for that was you were outside any economic areas, so that basically you couldn't cause trouble because of what you were carrying, the nuclear material. And as a result though, you got some of the nastiest weather that was around. And so as I'm traversing the Southern Ocean on this 100-metre small cargo ship that's flat bottom, we were generally rolling about 30-40 degrees either way for about a month constantly. So you really have to get used to it, and for some people the very thought of it is just too much, let alone actually being there and experiencing it. And when the weather does die down at the end of it, it feels a bit weird, because you think, well actually the ship's not moving anymore. And I think as a seafarer, you're used to and you're taught to secure everything all the time. So even if I'm at home now and you see a cup on the side just lying there, you put it somewhere, because you're like, what are you doing that for? Well, I'm securing it. You know, you're always thinking that the ship's going to roll, even when you're at home. But no, I haven't been seasick, fortunately. There's some days where you do feel a bit queasy, maybe. And it all depends on the motion, whether it's rolling, pitching, things like that. Everybody's different. The best thing I find, lie down on your back on the deck. It's fantastic. Works wonders.
Are people surprised when they see you? Because you're a young 26, I would say. So
yeah, they are very surprised. There's a lot of there's varied reactions generally, but most are quite surprised because they don't realise who I am. And I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Harvey, the chief officer, and they are quite taken aback. And a lot of them will. Some will say it and some won't, but someone will say, wow, you do look very young. And I often like to joke with them. I'll say, well, how old do you think I am? Oh, about 29. I say, oh, well, the cream's not working then, you know. And when I tell them, you know, I was 25, now 26, they are genuinely very shocked. And when I sort of tell them my story and my background and what I've done, they're absolutely enthralled by it. They love it. They think it's fantastic. And it inspires a lot of them to actually go and look into it a bit more themselves, especially people who wouldn't normally be affiliated with the sea. And I've met it where people were, you know, they've got family, friends, children even, who they've said, you know what, they would love this. And there are many ways in which you can find out more about the Careers at Sea. There is a Careers at Sea programme, which I'm a part of, and go around and actually promote Careers at Sea to schools, colleges, youth groups, anywhere like that, even primary schools, you know, and talk about what I do, where I go, what I've done in life, and where I hope to go with it. And because there are so many exciting prospects out of it, there's so many rewards you can get from it. It's a fantastic career, and like I said already, if you love the job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Shipping is always going to be here, despite AI or new technology. We're going to need ships,
Absolutely.
I imagine, for some time to come. And hopefully some crew for those ships as well, although there are some ships with less or no crew now. But where do you see yourself going in the future? You're chief officer now.
Yes.
Presumably you want to move up to captain?
That's the plan, hopefully so. Interesting you say that. I am actually going to go back to Fleetwood very soon to do my master's exams for my captains. So I'll be back over there very soon doing those. They take normally a couple of months, and I've already done the written exams for that, so that's just a face-to-face oral exam essentially at the end of that. But yeah, hopefully in a couple of years' time I would progress up to the dizzying heights of captain, and who knows after that.
What I love about your story is the fact that you knew what you wanted to do when you were young, and that I think is quite rare, especially in this day and age. And if you hadn't done that bridge visit in Mallorca, if you hadn't written that letter at the time, what do you think you'd be doing now?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think because I was so set on it at such a young age, I had that passion and drive to push for what I wanted. You know, I knew that is what I wanted to do. I knew that's where I wanted to be. I heavily researched the career, the industry, everything behind it, even to the point of writing yourself a letter, and other companies as well. You were one of the nice ones who let me go down. And it made me realise that is what I wanted to do. And hence, as a result, because I had that drive, that determination, I pushed hard for it. And obviously I've got where I wanted to be so far. And so I hope that drive and passion will continue, and so I can get my way up to captain eventually as well.
What would you say to other young people considering a career in the maritime industry?
I'd say to them, it's a fantastic industry. It really, really is. If it's something that you would enjoy, it's an amazing career. You have so many perks out of it. whether that's visiting amazing places around the world, whether it's being paid a handsome salary, whether it's even having half the year off as well, so you can have your own life and go and do other things as well. There's so many perks to it, and the shipping community is an international, worldwide community, and so you get to meet some amazing people from all different backgrounds and walks of life. You have people who do have a career change. In fact, I've had people in their 30s when I was training, they had a complete career change. From some of them had quite high flying jobs as well, and they lost it all, put it all to the side, and said, actually no, I want to go and work at sea. And so you meet some amazing people, you go to some amazing places, and the perks of the job, they're second to none. It's fantastic, and not least, it's debt-free training as well.
The people and their stories. This is Full Ahead, the podcast about ships and shipping.
Well, that's Harvey Finney talking to Alistair at Heysham very recently. Talk about enthusiastic. I mean, if you could bottle what he has, I should say, that's amazing. His commitment, his determination, it's all there. It's amazing.
Sorry, interrupting you. Yes, it's amazing. I was just really blown away by Harvey, and always have been from that first time he contacted me. You can know what you want to do in life. You can have the perfect idea, but you still have to make it happen. And he pushed all the doors and is still pushing all the doors to make it happen. And there's a lesson in there about knowing what you want to do, but a lesson in grit and determination and positivity. What a positive person to speak to.
I've got to ask you then, come on Alistair, putting you on the spot at this moment in time. You're interested in shipping and in career. You didn't go to sea, did you? Or did you go to sea?
No, I get terribly seasick, so I'm not good at sea at all. Never put me on a ship or anywhere near one. But no, my interest really came from wanting to be close to mountains and rivers and being into whitewater kayaking and falling into a student placement in a local port with a local ferry company. So it was all about kayaking and rivers and mountains for me. Kind of fell in through the back door somehow. Maybe thinking back at primary school, we had to write a letter to a local business or to a business. And I wrote a letter for some unknown reason to Townsend Torreson that were doing the ferries across from Dover at the time. And they sent me back this big envelope with this massive fold-out ferry where it was all kind of cut out and you could see the engine room and see the passengers and see the bridge and everything. So I talk about kayaking and all that, but maybe deep down there was some kind of thing that came from primary school there of someone taking the time to write back to me and give me some information. So maybe deep inside it's always been within me.
I've got to say, the people who perhaps might join us on an episode of the podcast in the future were very supportive with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company. I had a brief kind of dalliance with the steam packet back in the 80s. When I think it was the old Ben McCree was the old steam-driven ferry was brought back into service somewhat kind of at short notice for the TT, and watching it kind of come into Heysham and the Manxman and the Manx Viking, I should say, going back out. I got in touch with them and said, "Have you got any pictures?" And they sent me one. I've still got it. This lovely kind of envelope full and a kind of like a postcard book which they sent me with a really nice note from the managing director, which I've still got as a treasured heirloom. It's brilliant.
And going back to Harvey, when Harvey wrote me that first email letter, whatever it was, saying, "Can I come and see a ship?" Maybe that was me giving back from primary school, saying, well, I remember when someone gave me something back. And so, yeah, it wasn't a kind of put that one in the bin, let's get Harvey down, let's get him on a ship. And, the rest is history, I guess.
Excellent stuff. So if you're listening to this and you're in a similar kind of vein, then have a look at our show notes. There's some good guidance there, as Alistair mentioned, about where to look, perhaps more information about shipping and shipping careers. And also, if you're involved in the shipping industry as well, we're always looking for guests. We're very keen to hear from you. Again, there's more details in our show notes. So before we go, it's time for more Maritime Matters, the part of Full Ahead, when we try and get answers to the kind of questions people like me are afraid to ask. We were talking recently, weren't we, when we first met about the podcast, and you mentioned something that came out of the blue that it certainly made me think about how much of the English language comes from a maritime setting. The bitter end, for example. I was talking about this, I think, and said it as an aside about, we'll carry on with this to the bitter end.
Yeah, and the bitter end is another maritime phrase like many of the phrases we use. So the bitter end is all about your anchor chain on a ship. So when you want to park your ship at sea, you drop your anchor down. But it's not the anchor digging into the sea that really holds the ship, it's the weight of the anchor chain. So you put lots and lots of anchor chain out onto the seabed. If you have extended your entire anchor chain and the ship is still drifting, it's still dragging, you're in trouble. And the last bit of the anchor chain that connects you, the anchor chain to the ship, is called the bitter end. So when you've reached the bitter end and your ship is still moving, you're basically in trouble and you've reached the bitter end. So that's the bitter end.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. If you've got any queries, and also we shall contact, got some really good contacts who are interested in English, how it's evolved. We'll have a chat with them perhaps and perhaps learn some more about maritime links to the English language. And now horizon scanning. Just finally, what's coming up over the next few weeks and months?
And if Harvey's conversations inspired you to find out more about a career in the maritime industry and you're in the northwest of England, then Fleetwood Nautical College have an event in July where you can go and learn all about becoming a member, an officer of the Merchant Navy.
Wow, well there we are. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour for the first edition of A Full Ahead for this one anyway. We've got lots more people for you to meet. Coming up, we're going to the port of Workington. We'll also hear from our pilot as well, Andy Bradbury, in the next edition. But what can I say? I've learned a lot already. I hope people listening to this have as well. And Alistair, how's it been for you?
Yeah, so far so good. It's exciting knowing some of the guests we've got coming up. So keep listening. Check us out on social media. Search for Full Ahead. And get in touch with details of what you might want to hear on this exciting new podcast.
Get in touch. Find us on social media or email nigel.thompson@journalist.com.